Hello, I am Mohanan,
I'm Madhav,
and Tara is sitting there.
behind the camera, so you won't see her.
So this is the course on inquiry and integration. So I guess we have to say something about what we mean by inquiry and what we mean by integration.
So what is inquiry?
Okay, so inquiry we can say is the process of finding things out. So why don't we write inquiry, process of finding out.
So if I ask you, what is your name, and you answer Mohanan, is that inquiry?
That will not be inquiry because I'm just giving you the information.
Okay.
The process of finding out will require one's own observation and you could say experience. Based on our own experience, observation will come under that. Or one's own thinking. And this would include such things as reasoning and so on.
Okay.
Or a combination of the two.
Okay.
So when you find out from me what my name is, that doesn't count as inquiry because you're not using any of these.
Okay.
Yeah. It's only when you do that that you have inquiry. And this will include many other things, not simply observation and reasoning. These are the central parts. This will include, inquiry will include critical thinking.
So I've heard the word critical thinking many times.
Yeah.
But most people, when they say it, they're very unclear about what it means.
That is true.
So
yeah.
What do you mean by critical thinking?
For me, critical thinking is the evaluation of the merit of something.
Okay.
In the case of inquiry, what we are evaluating is a conclusion that is being offered. So when we go through this process of finding things out, we begin with a question and come up with an answer or conclusion. And we could say it's a claim.
Okay.
It's a claim that something is true.
Yeah.
So there is a process of finding things out.
Yeah.
And there is also the process of checking whether the conclusion is good, conclusion is true, and so on. And inquiry includes that part. That's why critical thinking is important.
So that is evaluating something that you found out.
That's right. But it may also be evaluating something that others have found out,
Yeah.
others in the community. Evaluating the merit of what others have found out or what we have found out.
Okay. So it could also be this. There can be evaluating something without doing any inquiry as well, right?
In some cases,
In some
yes.
cases.
Because
So you could
somebody
read
else
the
has done the inquiry
Yeah.
and is.
So you could read the newspaper and
Evaluate that.
what's
That's right.
written there.
Absolutely.
And
That's
what
why
do you
this-
what do you do when you have evaluated something? What is that for? Is it for you to accept something or?
Yes, you evaluate the merit of something on the basis of all the possible considerations and decide whether you want to accept it, you want to reject it, or you want to keep it on hold. That's what you do when you engage in critical thinking. But even these are only the bare bones. Quite often it also, in addition to these, it will include intuition, it will include imagination, it will include creativity, it will include rigor of thinking, and many other mental faculties. We just mentioned the crucial parts.
Would discovering something also be part of this?
Would
Discovering, inventing.
yes, actually, yeah. This part is the discovery. We discover something, or we invent something, and then we critically evaluate this. we have to justify that, and we have to evaluate what we have. So it will include all of these. And
What do you mean by justify?
Justification would mean we are presenting, let us say we are presenting a conclusion. Then somebody is going to ask you, what is the evidence for that conclusion? What argument would support that conclusion? So this will also include notions like evidence, proof, arguments. And sometimes what happens is when two people present opposite conclusions, that can happen in an inquiry community, then you engage in debates. So inquiry in a community will include all of those. So this is roughly the kind of spectrum of concepts that we would be concerned with.
Under inquiry.
Under inquiry.
So now we come to integration.
Right. So we could say, I guess I'm going to write it here because there isn't very much space left, is the opposite of fragmentation.
Integration.
Integration is the opposite of fragmentation. So things which are otherwise disconnected, things which otherwise appear to be not connected, we are putting them together, so making connections. Unifying.
Okay.
And creating a whole out of fragments. That's what we mean by integration. So quite often what happens is the knowledge that we receive is fragmented into different subjects. So we learn geometry, we learn algebra, we learn physics, we learn chemistry, we learn molecular biology, evolutionary biology, we learn history, we learn philosophy, literary criticism. All these are fragmented. What we want to do is to go above that level where disciplinary boundaries do not exist. So we call that level, the meta level, we call that transdisciplinary.
So in the transdisciplinary level, what you're abstracting out is the similarities across various disciplines.
Right.
Of course, there are differences, but that's not what you're concerned with when you're going to this level.
That's right.
You're ignoring the differences and you're working on the similarities.
That's right. So all these things that we have mentioned here, they don't belong to any particular discipline. So when we say something like theory, which discipline does the word theory belong to? Evidence, where does that belong to? Justification, where does that belong to?
Evidence, for example, doesn't fit in mathematics.
That is true.
So,
but we could still say there is something that mathematics and science have in common.
Yeah.
The grounds. What are the grounds for justification? That will include mathematics as well.
Yeah.
Reasoning would include mathematics and philosophy and science, everything. So we will be concerned with the transdisciplinary level, cutting across disciplinary boundaries. And we will be investigating bodies of knowledge as well as modes of inquiry.